Mantelpiece clock title. If she translates, I'll give her mother my job. Millionaire laughed, till black girl spoke Chinese. Dash dash dash. Clapperboard powerful hook. Greater than, you ever see someone laugh so loud, the whole room joins in, until the punchline turns on them. Well, that's exactly what happened when a billionaire CEO mocked a single mother and her little girl, but the laughter stopped cold when that little girl opened her mouth and spoke fluent Mandarin, shaking an entire boardroom to its core. Before you judge someone's worth by their skin or shoes, you might want to hear this story. And hey, if stories like this inspire you, don't forget to hit subscribe, because what happens next, you'll never see coming. Dash dash dash. Grey Heart Chapter 1. The Interview. It was one of those mornings that felt heavy with promise and pressure all at once. Downtown Los Angeles shimmered under a mid-morning sun, reflecting off skyscraper glass and expensive car windows, and somewhere between that blinding wealth and the reality of struggle stood Marianne Johnson, a 38-year-old single mother clutching a faded leather purse in the hand of her 11-year-old daughter, Amara. Marianne had worked the last 5 years as a janitor for Chamberlain Global Holdings, one of the most powerful real estate firms in the city. Every morning before dawn, she scrubbed their marble floors, wiped their fingerprints off glass doors, and smiled at people who didn't see her. But today was different. Today, she wasn't here to clean. Today, she was here for an interview. The position was for an executive assistant, steady hours, better pay, benefits. It wasn't glamorous, but to Marianne, it was the bridge between survival and stability. The problem, the man she'd be interviewed by, Richard Chamberlain, billionaire CEO and notorious perfectionist, didn't think people like her belonged anywhere near his boardroom. He'd only agreed to see her because his HR director begged him, and because Marianne's spotless record and glowing references made it hard to refuse. Marianne didn't know that. She only knew her daughter, Amara, had begged to come with her. "Mom, I wanna see where you work. Maybe it'll bring you good luck," the girl said with her big, curious eyes and braids tied with sky blue ribbons. Marianne had almost said no, but something in Amara's insistence, that innocent, unshakable belief that her mother deserved something better, made her whisper, "Okay, baby. But you stay quiet, all right?" They arrived early. Too early. The receptionist gave them both a side eye that said you don't belong here, but Marianne just smiled politely. She sat there, smoothing out her thrift store blazer, pretending not to notice the way people glanced at her shoes, practical flats, not designer heels. She held her breath when the elevator chimed and a man stepped out with a presence so commanding it made the whole room shift. Richard Chamberlain, late 40s, sharp suit, cold eyes that measured people like profit margins. He scanned the lobby, saw Marianne, and smirked. "You must be the janitor," he said, half amused, half dismissive. Marianne rose, extending her hand. "I was, sir. Today I'm here for the assistant position." His eyebrows lifted. "Ambitious," he said, not as a compliment. Then his gaze fell on Amara. "And this must be your assistant's assistant?" The few executives nearby chuckled. Marianne's cheeks burned. "This is my daughter, sir. She'll wait quietly." He waved a hand, already bored. "Fine, but next time, leave the kid at home. This isn't a daycare." They walked together into the glass-walled conference room that overlooked the entire city. Richard didn't bother offering her a seat until his assistant whispered it was proper etiquette. He finally gestured lazily. "All right, Marianne, let's make this quick. I'm a busy man." What followed was an interview more like an interrogation. He questioned everything: her experience, her education, her worth. Every time she spoke with calm professionalism, he twisted her answers. When she mentioned she'd learned Mandarin years ago while cleaning a cultural center, he laughed outright. "Mandarin, you, please. I have billion-dollar deals in Beijing, my translators barely keep up." Marianne smiled faintly. "Then maybe you could use one more." He leaned back, eyes glinting. "Tell you what, if you can translate the next thing my Chinese partners say in our meeting this afternoon, I'll give your mother my job." The room froze. The executive stared at him. Even his assistant looked uneasy. Marianne blinked. "Excuse me," he repeated, louder, for the whole room to hear. "If she translates, I'll give her mother my job." He nodded toward Amara. The laughter erupted again, but before Marianne could respond, Amara tugged at her sleeve. "Mom," she whispered. He said her mother, right? That means me. Richard caught it and sneered. "Oh, the kid wants to play translator. This I gotta see." What no one knew, not even Marianne, was that Amara could speak Mandarin. She'd picked it up quietly over the years, watching Chinese dramas online and chatting with the janitorial staff's elderly coworker, Mrs. Wang, who treated her like a granddaughter. Amara hadn't told her mother because it always felt like her secret superpower, one that connected her to a world far beyond their block. When the Chinese investors arrived, Richard greeted them with fake enthusiasm and butchered pronunciation. The men were polite but clearly unimpressed. He motioned for his official translator to join, but Amara stepped forward. The room went silent. "Excuse me," she said softly. "May I translate for you?" Everyone froze. One of the Chinese investors, a middle-aged man named Mr. Zhao, raised an eyebrow and said something in rapid Mandarin. "Little girl, do you even know what we're saying?" Without hesitation, Amara replied, "Of course. You just asked if I knew what you were saying." The man's eyes widened. Then he laughed, not mockingly, but with delight. "Ta shuo de hen hao, she speaks very well." The translator's jaw dropped. Richard's smirk vanished. In the next 5 minutes, the girl carried on an effortless back-and-forth conversation with the investors. She translated technical terms, financial nuances, and even cultural idioms flawlessly. The Chinese team, previously cold, now leaned forward, engaged and impressed. When one of them made a subtle joke about Richard's pronunciation, Amara chuckled softly before translating it kindly into English, sparing him humiliation. By the end of the meeting, the investors were smiling, shaking Marianne's hand, and thanking her brilliant daughter. Richard sat there pale, speechless. When they left, the room was thick with silence. Then his assistant whispered, "Sir, looks like she did translate." Richard forced a laugh that sounded brittle. Lucky guess. But luck had nothing to do with it. That was the moment everything began to shift, though none of them knew it yet. Briefcase Chapter 2. The deal they never saw coming. For 3 whole days after the translation incident, the offices of Chamberlain Global Holdings buzzed with the kind of gossip that spreads faster than wildfire in a paper factory. Everyone had seen it, or heard about it, how the billionaire who thought he knew everything about class and talent got publicly outsmarted by a janitor's daughter. Security guards whispered it over lunch. Assistants replayed it in group chats. Even executives shared the clip secretly, because yes, someone had filmed it. The video hit the internet before noon that same day. Black girl shocks billionaire CEO by speaking Mandarin fluently. It went viral within hours. Millions watched Amara standing tall in that glass room, speaking with grace and confidence that left grown men stunned. The comments poured in. Greater than, "She's the future. This is what intelligence looks like. That man's face at 310, priceless." By the next morning, reporters were calling. News anchors wanted interviews. Social media dubbed Amara the girl who spoke truth to power. But inside Chamberlain's office, it wasn't celebration, it was chaos. Richard Chamberlain was furious. Furious at the embarrassment. Furious at the headlines. Furious that he couldn't make it all disappear. His board of directors had already scheduled an emergency image review meeting. Shareholders were asking questions about his behavior, about the racial undertones in his mockery. Lawyers whispered about potential discrimination lawsuits. He stormed into his office, slamming the door so hard the blinds rattled. "Where is she?" he barked. His assistant, a quiet woman named Elena, peeked in nervously. "Who, sir?" "You know who, the janitor and her little prodigy. I want them in my office. Now." Minutes later, Marianne and Amara were escorted in. Marianne looked terrified, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Amara, though, looked calm, almost serene, as if she'd already seen through the man's anger to the fear beneath it. Richard didn't waste time. "You think you embarrassed me?" he snapped. "You think you can just waltz into my meeting and play translator? You and your little stunt made me a laughingstock." Marianne took a step forward, voice trembling but firm. "Sir, with respect, you made yourself one when you mocked us." For a moment, silence. Then he laughed, but it wasn't amused, it was dark. "You've got some nerve." He leaned forward, eyes cold. "Here's what's going to happen. I'll pay you $50,000, cash, and you'll both disappear. No interviews, no statements, no videos. You'll sign a confidentiality agreement, and you'll never mention my name again." Marianne froze. $50,000 was more money than she'd ever seen in her life. It could clear her debts, pay rent for years, maybe even send Amara to a good school. But before she could answer, Amara spoke softly. "You can't buy silence, Mr. Chamberlain. You can only rent it." The line hit him like a slap. "What did you just say?" Amara held his gaze. If you really want us gone, maybe you should think about why you're so afraid we'll stay. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. The next day, Marianne received a formal notice, termination of employment, effective immediately. No severance, no apology, just a line at the bottom, for disruption of workplace order. But something else came with that letter, a phone call that would change everything. It was from Mr. Zhao, the Chinese investor who'd been at that meeting. His deep, calm voice carried through the cheap phone speaker. Ms. Johnson, I saw what happened. I also saw your daughter's brilliance. I would like to offer you both an opportunity, in Beijing. Marianne's heart skipped. Beijing, yes. Our company is opening a cross-cultural initiative. We need translators who understand both business and humility. You both have what Mr. Chamberlain lacks, respect. At first, Marianne thought it was a scam. But when official documents and flight tickets arrived the next day, she realized it was real. Within a week, they were on a plane, leaving behind Los Angeles, leaving behind shame, heading toward a second chance. The next months were a blur. Beijing was colder than they'd expected, yet warmer in welcome. Mr. Zhao's company, Hailong Enterprises, treated them like family. Marianne became a liaison for their international projects, while Amara attended an elite bilingual academy, where her natural gift for languages blossomed. She learned not just Mandarin, but Cantonese, French, and even some Korean. Her teachers called her a bridge between worlds. Her classmates, initially skeptical, soon admired her brilliance and kindness. Meanwhile, back in the US, Chamberlain's empire was crumbling. His racist comment had resurfaced again and again online. Investors pulled out. Sponsors cut ties. His name became a cautionary tale about arrogance and prejudice. Within 6 months, his board voted to remove him as CEO. He disappeared from the public eye. But fate, as it always does, wasn't done twisting the knife, or healing it. One evening, nearly a year later, Marianne received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Request for meeting, from Richard Chamberlain." She almost deleted it, but something inside her, not anger, but curiosity, made her open it. The message was short, greater than, "I'm in Beijing. I need to speak with you and your daughter. It's urgent, When they met, he didn't look like the same man. His suit was still expensive, but his posture was different, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. "I lost everything," he admitted quietly. "My company, my home, my reputation." Marianne folded her arms. "That's unfortunate, but what do you want from us?" He hesitated. A chance to make things right. He explained that he'd been consulting for a Chinese startup, ironically, one that now worked under Hailong's network. "Mr. Zhao told me you were here. He told me what you've become. I didn't believe it until I saw your name on the project list." Amara, now 12 and taller, studied him carefully. "Do you believe it now?" He nodded. "Yes, and I came to apologize." Marianne raised an eyebrow. "You flew halfway across the world to say sorry." "Not just to say it," he said. "To prove it. I want to help your daughter. I know people who can get her scholarships, sponsorships." Amara interrupted. "I don't need your help. I just want you to understand something. You laughed at us because you thought power looked like you. But real power looks like compassion. It sounds like respect, and it speaks every language." He swallowed hard, tears glimmering in his eyes. "You sound just like your mother." That night, as they walked home through the lantern-lit streets of Beijing, Marianne realized something profound. Forgiveness wasn't about letting someone off the hook, it was about freeing yourself from their hold. "Mom," Amara said quietly, "do you think people can really change?" Marianne smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "Maybe not overnight, but maybe one word at a time." Sparkles Chapter 3, The Language of Redemption. 2 years later, Beijing's skyline glittered like circuitry against the night. Marianne stood backstage at the Global Youth Innovation Forum, palms sweating as the announcer introduced the final speaker, Amara Johnson, 12-year-old linguistic prodigy representing Hailong Enterprises. The crowd erupted when the small girl stepped to the podium. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered that she was already fluent in 8 languages and working on her 9th. But as she began to speak, in Mandarin, English, and then Swahili, it wasn't just fluency that moved the audience. It was her message. Greater than, languages aren't barriers. They're bridges. And the first bridge we build is respect. The applause was thunderous. Even the Chinese premier in the front row rose to his feet. Afterward, backstage, a figure waited quietly near the exit. The moment Amara saw him, she stopped. Richard Chamberlain, thinner, older, humbled, stood with a worn briefcase in hand. He'd been working quietly for how long as a mentor in corporate ethics training, teaching new managers how not to become who he once was. He smiled softly. "You were incredible up there." Amara tilted her head. "I didn't know you'd be here. Mr. Zhao invited me, said I should see what I helped destroy, and what I accidentally helped build." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a recommendation letter, written to the United Nations Language Initiative, bearing his signature and seal. "For your scholarship," he said. "You don't need it, but sometimes an apology should come with action." Marianne joined them, cautious but kind. "You really changed, didn't you?" He nodded. "Losing everything teaches you the words you never thought you'd need. I'm sorry." Then, quietly, he revealed a secret he'd carried for months. "Before I left the company, I found something. Old employment records. Your late husband, Marianne, he once worked for our Shanghai branch. He was one of the translators who helped us sign our first Chinese deal. His name was listed on every document." Marianne's eyes widened. "Darius." "Yes. He believed in connection across languages, the same vision your daughter now represents. Maybe this was never a coincidence." Tears blurred her vision. All those nights she'd wondered where Amara's gift came from, now she knew. It wasn't just brilliance. It was legacy. Amara smiled through the emotion. "So my dad's words built bridges too." Richard nodded. "And now yours rebuild them." Later that night, as fireworks blossomed over the river, Amara stood with her mother watching the reflections dance across the water. "Mom," she whispered, "remember when he said if I translate, he'd give you his job?" Marianne laughed softly. "How could I forget?" "Well," Amara said, gazing up at the sky, "maybe he kept his promise after all. You don't clean his office anymore, you run projects bigger than his company ever dreamed." Marianne hugged her tight. "And you, my love, you speak for people who never get heard." Behind them, Richard watched from a distance, not as a billionaire, but as a man learning humility in a language more powerful than any spoken one. He turned to Mr. Zhao and said quietly, "She's going to change the world." Mr. Zhao smiled. "She already has." The camera crews caught one final shot, mother and daughter framed against the fireworks, as the announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Greater than, sometimes, the smallest voices speak the loudest truths. And sometimes, the ones we underestimate become the translators of hope. Bullseye closing hook. Subscribe line for viral video narration. Greater than, he laughed at her mother, until her daughter spoke the language that shattered his pride. Don't underestimate the quiet ones, they might just be fluent in the words that change the world. If stories like this moved you, subscribe for more, because real power doesn't shout, it translates.